life's unpredictability can lead to the most ironic endings. In this video, we'll uncover 5 real stories of people who met their fate in shockingly ironic ways. These unforgettable tales serve as a reminder that both life and death can take unexpected, strange, and often surprising turns. It was September 4th, 2006, in Queensland, Australia. Steve Irwin, the famed wildlife expert known as the crocodile hunter, was filming a documentary titled Ocean's Deadliest at Bat Reef, part of the Great Barrier Reef. At 44 years old, Irwin was in his prime, adored worldwide for his daring encounters with dangerous animals and infectious enthusiasm for wildlife conservation. He married Terry Irwin and had 2 children, Bindi and Robert. Steve's passion for wildlife started early. When he was 6, he caught a venomous brown snake. By the age of 9, he was wrestling crocodiles. These early experiences shaped his future, leading him to manage Birwa Reptile and Fauna Park, which his parents had started in 1970. Under his management, the park was renamed Australia Zoo, and Steve's larger-than-life personality catapulted him to global fame, most notably through his TV series, The Crocodile Hunter. In July 2006, Irwin was on top of the world. He and Terry had just plotted a 10-year plan for the Australia Zoo, and he was excited about spreading his conservation message through his work. He often said, "If we don't get animals into people's hearts, they will go extinct. We're running out of time right now." Little did he know that his dedication to wildlife would lead to a tragic end on a seemingly ordinary day at Bat Reef. Bad weather started the day, halting their initial plan to film tiger sharks. Restless and eager to do something, Irwin and his crew, including his close friend and cameraman Justin Lyons, set out in an inflatable boat to find other footage. It wasn't long before they spotted an 8-foot-wide stingray, perfect for another project they were working on. Stingrays are generally peaceful creatures. If disturbed, they usually swim away quickly. But this one behaved differently. The stingray suddenly attacked as Irwin and Lyons prepared for one final shot. It propped on its front and began striking with its tail, stabbing Irwin multiple times in the chest. Lyons, who had worked with Irwin for 15 years and considered him his best mate, continued filming per their rule to capture everything, but he soon realized something was wrong. Lyons described the horrifying moment. All of a sudden, it propped on its front and started stabbing wildly with its tail, hundreds of strikes in a few seconds. The stingray's powerful tail struck Irwin with a force Lyons likened to a hot knife through butter. He immediately saw Irwin standing in a pool of blood and knew they had to act fast. They pulled Irwin into the boat and began the desperate race back to their main vessel, Croc 1. Irwin was calm, but in severe pain. He told Lyons, "It punctured my lung." But the situation was far worse. The barb had pierced his heart. Lyons and the crew tried to keep Irwin conscious, reminding him to think of his children. Irwin looked at Lyons and said his final words, "I'm dying." Despite Lyons performing CPR for over an hour, their efforts were in vain. By the time they reached medical help, Irwin was pronounced dead within seconds. The stingray's attack had caused massive damage to his heart, making survival impossible. The news of Steve Irwin's death shocked the world. Known for his fearless interaction with some of the deadliest animals on the planet, it was hard to believe that a stingray, often called the pussycat of the ocean, had taken his life. Toxicologist Jamie Seymour, who was on board Croc 1 that day, explained that the attack was a freak accident. "It was just a really bad accident," he said. "Under some circumstances, it goes wrong." Steve Irwin's death left a void in the world of wildlife conservation. His daughter, Bindi, was only 8 years old and his son, Robert, was just 2. Bindi later reflected on the loss. "It's like losing a part of your heart, and when you've lost that, you never get it back." Irwin's legacy, however, lives on through his family and the continued work of Australia Zoo. It was August 1985 in New Orleans, Louisiana. Jerome Moody, a 31-year-old resident, was attending a party hosted by the New Orleans Recreation Department. This wasn't just any party. It was a celebration for the lifeguards who had completed the summer without a drowning incident. The atmosphere was filled with joy and relief, as this was the first time in memory that such a record had been achieved. Jerome was not a lifeguard. He was a guest at the party, fully dressed and enjoying the festivities from the sidelines. The event was held at a city pool, and among the 200 attendees, nearly half were certified lifeguards. 4 lifeguards were on duty, ensuring the safety of everyone present. As the evening wore on, the celebration continued. The lifeguards mingled, shared stories, and enjoyed the rare opportunity to relax and celebrate their achievements. Like many others, Jerome moved around the pool area, engaging in conversations and enjoying the vibrant atmosphere. But amid the laughter and celebration, something went wrong. Towards the end of the party, as the lifeguards cleared the pool, they made a shocking discovery. At the bottom of the deep end lay the lifeless body of Jerome Moody. Fully clothed and unnoticed, Jerome had somehow slipped into the pool and drowned. Despite the presence of numerous lifeguards, his plight went undetected until it was too late. Panic and disbelief quickly spread through the crowd as the lifeguards sprang into action. They pulled Jerome's body from the water and desperately tried to revive him, but their efforts were in vain. Emergency medical attendants arrived, but it was too late. An autopsy later confirmed that Jerome had drowned. The bitter irony of the situation was not lost on anyone. A man had drowned at a party meant to celebrate a season free of drowning incidents. The lifeguards, who had prided themselves on their vigilance and dedication, were devastated. Madeline Richard, the director of the New Orleans Recreation Department, expressed the profound sorrow felt by everyone involved. The lifeguards were upset. "It's a real tragedy," she said. This was the first annual party in memory where they could celebrate a trouble-free season. We had all been talking about it. It was the first season without a single drowning incident. Jerome's death left many questions unanswered. How had he ended up in the pool? Why hadn't anyone noticed him struggling? The investigation revealed that Jerome had not been swimming with the other guests and had been fully clothed when he was found. His entry into the water remained a mystery, shrouded in the confusion and chaos of the party. Jerome Moody's death deeply impacted his family and community. Born in Emporia, Virginia, to George and Daisy Moody, he moved to Portsmouth, where he received his early education. Jerome had an entrepreneurial spirit and worked as a delivery driver for Lee Gary's Cleaners, aspiring to own a dry cleaning business one day. Although his life was tragically cut short at 31, he fulfilled his dream by operating Dondi's Dry Cleaners in the Bronx for several successful years, leaving behind a legacy of determination and ambition. After retiring, Jerome returned to Portsmouth, where he continued his education and completed his BS degree at Norfolk State University. He became a committed community activist and established a strong relationship with Noble Street Baptist Church, working faithfully with the Wilson Ward Civic League. Jerome was survived by his son, Jay Moody, granddaughter, Brianna Wright, brother, George Moody, and 3 sisters, Barbara Cure, Daisy Lee, and Veronica Johnson. He was preceded in death by his daughter, Deborah Staten Wright. The tragic irony of Jerome's death reminds us of the unpredictability of life and the importance of vigilance, even in seemingly safe environments. Despite their best efforts and training, the lifeguards missed a drowning man at their celebration. It was early January 4th, 2005, on Interstate 80 near Lincoln, Nebraska. The weather was cold and the roads were dangerous. Derek Keeper, a 21-year-old senior at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, was returning to school from a trip to San Antonio, Texas. Derek was in the back seat of a Ford Explorer driven by his friend Luke Haverman. Another friend, Nick Uphoff, was in the front passenger seat. All 3 were members of the same fraternity and had shared many adventures. Derek was known for being smart, funny, and intense. He loved debating and had a passion for learning. His friends described him as someone who would do anything for those he cared about. He was a high achiever, maintaining a 4.0 GPA while juggling 5 majors: history, psychology, economics, sociology, and political science. Derek had big plans for the future and looked forward to attending law school. A truck driver noticed the Ford Explorer veering off the road on this cold night. The vehicle skidded on the icy surface, losing control before rolling several times into a ditch. The driver quickly called 911 and emergency services rushed to the scene. Derek, who had been ejected from the vehicle, lay lifeless on the cold ground. He had not been wearing a seatbelt. Luke and Nick, both wearing seatbelts, survived the crash with non-life-threatening injuries. They were taken to Bryan L.G.H. Medical Center West for treatment. The news of the accident spread quickly, shocking the university, Derek's family, and friends. Derek's father, Paul Keeper, was devastated. "At this point, I'm in shock," he said in an interview. Paul had moved to Lincoln when Derek started college to be close to his son. He spoke fondly of Derek's accomplishments and love for debate and learning. Derek had even spent a summer studying economics at Oxford University in England, an experience he cherished deeply. Derek's friend, Cade Pittman, who had known him since 7th grade, was heartbroken. "He'd do anything for anybody," Cade said. "He was really funny and extremely intelligent. He'd tutor me in classes he didn't even take." Cade had last seen Derek shortly before he left for Texas for Christmas break. All who knew Derek felt the loss deeply. Captain Joe Leffler of the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office provided details of the accident. He confirmed that alcohol did not play a role in the crash and that the vehicle had skidded on the ice-covered road before rolling into the ditch. Derek's failure to wear a seatbelt resulted in his tragic ejection from the car. Derek's own beliefs and actions made this incident even more poignant. In September 2004, just 4 months before his death, Derek had written an opinion piece for the Daily Nebraskan. The article, "Individual Rights Buckle Under Seatbelt Laws," argued against mandatory seatbelt laws, claiming they infringed on personal freedoms. Derek wrote passionately about his belief that individuals should have the right to choose whether or not to wear a seatbelt. He dismissed seatbelt laws as intrusive and unnecessary. In his column, Derek stated, "It is my choice what type of safety precautions I take." He aligned himself with non-wearers who resisted government mandates, believing the decision to buckle up should be personal. Derek's words were clear and firm, reflecting his intense commitment to individual liberties. This tragic irony was not lost on those who knew Derek and the wider community. Derek's argument against seatbelt laws had played out in the most devastating way possible. His death showed the importance of seatbelts and their life-saving role. Seatbelt laws have a significant impact on road safety. In the United Kingdom, mandatory seatbelt laws were introduced in 1983, leading to a 29% reduction in fatal injuries of front seat passengers and a 30% drop in serious injuries within the first year. In the United States, seatbelts saved nearly 15,000 lives in 2017 alone. Despite these statistics, some still resist wearing seatbelts, often citing personal freedom. Derek's story is a sobering example of the consequences of such resistance. His passionate arguments against seatbelt laws now serve as a tragic lesson on the importance of safety precautions. The data is clear. Seatbelts save lives. Derek's untimely death underscores the very reason why these laws exist. It was July 25, 1911 in Niagara Falls, Ontario, Canada. Bobby Leach, a 54-year-old former Barnum and Bailey circus performer, was ready to make history. He had boasted for years that he could outdo Annie Edson Taylor, who had survived going over Niagara Falls in a barrel a decade earlier. Today was the day he would prove it. Bobby was known for his daredevil stunts. He had parachuted into the Niagara River after jumping off the Upper Steel Arch Bridge, but his ultimate goal was to survive the barrel plunge over Horseshoe Falls, just like Annie Taylor. Despite Taylor's famous warning, his confidence and bravado led him to this moment. Nobody ought to ever do that again. Bobby owned a restaurant on Bridge Street in Niagara Falls, where he often told his customers about his plans to conquer the falls. After many delays and significant expenses, his vessel was ready on this day. It was a cylindrical steel barrel with wooden bumpers at each end, designed to protect him from the violent impact of the falls. A tight harness held him in place inside the barrel. As Bobby's barrel was released into the Niagara River, a large crowd gathered at Table Rock and along the upper bank of the gorge. The anticipation was palpable. At about 3 p.m., a speeding car arrived at Table Rock, and the driver breathlessly announced that Bobby was on his way. The barrel quickly raced downriver. As it neared the brink of Horseshoe Falls, it struck a large rock, tearing off the front bumper and causing a severe gash on Bobby's forehead. Despite the impact, the barrel continued its descent and went over the falls at 3:13 p.m. A Daily Record reporter described the scene. As the barrel approached the brink, the multitude of voices hushed, as if by magic, and the silence was intense as the fearful plunge was made. Not a sound was heard except for the roar of the cataract until, "There he is!" was shouted by dozens of voices as the barrel reappeared in the seething, bubbling waters below, some little distance below the falls. But was Bobby still alive? For a while, no one knew. The barrel was caught in an eddy and swirled around for about 20 minutes. Eventually, Fred Bender, an employee of the Ontario Power Company, tied a rope around his waist and swam out to the barrel. He secured the barrel, and with the help of his colleagues, he pulled it ashore. Harry Williams, owner of the Lafayette Hotel, hammered on the side of the barrel. From inside, Bobby hammered back. The crowd erupted in cheers when they realized Bobby had survived. When he was finally extracted from the barrel, he had 2 broken kneecaps and a broken jaw. Despite his injuries, he requested some oxygen and then a cigar. Bobby spent 6 months in the hospital recovering from his injuries. His successful plunge over the falls made him an instant celebrity. He returned to Niagara Falls in 1920 and operated a pool hall. Even in his 60s, Bobby continued his daredevil pursuits, attempting to swim the Whirlpool Rapids but failing after several tries. Bobby's fame grew as he toured the world with his wife, showcasing his barrel and telling his story through lectures and presentations. His life was a testament to the human spirit's ability to endure even the most harrowing experiences. But Bobby's story took a tragic and ironic turn in 1926. While on a publicity tour in Auckland, New Zealand, Bobby slipped on a discarded orange peel. He fell and broke his leg. In an era before antibiotics, even minor injuries could lead to severe complications. Bobby's leg became infected, and gangrene set in. Despite the doctor's efforts, his leg had to be amputated. Bobby Leach died 2 months later during surgery. He was buried in Auckland's Hillsborough Cemetery. Bobby's gravestone reads, "In loving memory of Bobby Leach, world famous for his trip over Niagara Falls in a barrel. Died 28th of April 1926, aged 69 years. R.I.P." His bizarre death was later included in the Stupid Deaths segment of CBBC's adaptation of Horrible Histories, highlighting the absurdity of a man who survived Niagara Falls only to be undone by an orange peel. In 2011, on the centenary of Bobby's feat, Karen Barnett from Tyward Reith researched Bobby's life. She hoped to uncover more about his early days in Cornwall and potentially place a commemorative plaque in his birthplace. Bobby was born in Cornwall in 1858, but little is known about his early life there. It was July 29, 2011, in Durham Sud, Quebec, Canada. Chantal Lavigne, a 38-year-old mother of 2, has been exploring various New Age workshops since 2007. She was deeply interested in spirituality, alternative medicine, and organic farming. That summer, she attended a seminar titled Dying in Consciousness, run by self-proclaimed spiritual leader Gabrielle Fréchette, with assistance from Ginette Duclos and Gérald Fontaine. This seminar, which promoted detoxification through an extreme sweating ritual, ended tragically with Chantal's death. Chantal was dedicated to self-improvement, spending years and a significant amount of money attending these workshops. The leader, Fréchette, claimed to channel a mythical figure named Melchizedek, which deeply influenced Chantal and other participants. Chantal's journey into these spiritual practices began in 2007, and she became increasingly involved after the birth of her second child in 2009. Her family noticed her growing commitment to the group and its teachings. Fréchette often warned her followers, including Chantal, of inevitable tragic fates if they didn't complete their training. Though Chantal occasionally doubted Fréchette's methods, she remained involved in the seminars. By 2011, she had accumulated $40,000 in debt due to the workshops. Chantal believed in their transformative power and aspired to lead similar spiritual sessions. In July 2011, she even canceled a family camping trip to attend the Dying in Consciousness seminar, convinced it was crucial for her spiritual journey. The seminar occurred at a rented farmhouse where the participants underwent an intense sweating ritual. They were told it would detoxify their bodies. On that hot summer day, Chantal and 8 others lay on the floor covered in mud, wrapped in cellophane, and then layered with blankets. Cardboard boxes were placed over their heads to restrict airflow while they were instructed to hyperventilate. The ritual, supposedly inspired by indigenous sweat lodges, bore little resemblance to actual practices and posed significant risks. For 9 hours, the participants endured this intense ordeal. One participant dropped out due to serious physical issues, while another experienced severe distress. Chantal, however, remained in the session despite the extreme conditions. As time passed, the participants' discomfort grew worse. At some point, Chantal lost consciousness. Her body temperature spiked to 40.5 degrees Celsius or 104.9 degrees Fahrenheit, well above the normal range of 36 to 37 degrees. This leads to hyperthermia, where the body overheats to dangerous levels. Realizing something was wrong, Fréchette, who lacked medical training, eventually called emergency services. By the time paramedics arrived, Chantal was unresponsive, suffering from severe dehydration and organ failure. She was rushed to the hospital, but doctors were unable to save her. Chantal died from hyperthermia and multiple organ failure, with the autopsy comparing her condition to being cooked alive. The news of Chantal's death sent shockwaves through her community, and the media widely reported on the tragic event, exposing the dangers of the seminar. Authorities quickly investigated the incident, examining Fréchette and her team's actions. In December 2014, Fréchette, Duclos, and Fontaine were convicted of criminal negligence causing death. Fréchette was sentenced to 3 years in prison, while Duclos and Fontaine received 2-year sentences. The court found that their actions showed a reckless disregard for the safety of the participants. During the trial, Quebec Court Judge Hélène Fabi emphasized the dangerous conditions of the seminar. Airflow becomes restricted in hot, humid environments, adding to the discomfort. Furthermore, the organizers neglected to assess participants' health in advance, which heightened the risks and potential dangers for those involved. Experts heavily criticized the group's practices. Diane Cassoni, a criminologist from the University of Montreal, raised concerns about the lack of oversight for such groups. She highlighted the risks they pose to individuals and called for stricter regulations to prevent future tragedies like Chantal's.